This cracked egg costume came out amazing. It's just 2 cans of Great Stuff spray foam and 2-part epoxy resin. With 2-part epoxy resin and some simple techniques, there's nothing that we can't make, and I'm going to show you how to do this right now. Okay, real quick, here is how I made this cracked egg costume. The eggshell and the yolk are both Great Stuff spray in a can foam that I sprayed out onto a beach ball and a salad bowl before shaping them and sanding them into the shape of the eggshell and the yolk. The whole thing I covered with 2-part epoxy resin, and then the color comes from mica powder that we mix into the 2-part epoxy resin. They make mica powder in every color. That's how I got this wonderful yellow hue that covers the yolk, and the pearl color which I use for the eggshell up top. If you've never worked with 2-part epoxy, you're going to be a pro at the end of this video. It lets us not just make costumes, we're making art. The whole thing only costs about $40. It's a lot of fun. Anyone can do this. If I can, you can too. So we're going to break it down right now step by step, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's make a costume. To begin, we need a ball and we need a salad bowl. The salad bowl fits on top of the ball, and I just taped it up there with some blue painter's tape. We're just trying to make the shape of the thing that we want, which is an egg. This is half a foam ball. I got it at Walmart for $1. And it's going to fit on the top of the salad bowl to just finish out our shape. So I put it up there with a little blue painter's tape. And again, we're just making the shape of the thing that we want, which is an egg. I'm taking some strips of blue painter's tape and just smoothing out this gap so it looks less like a light bulb and more like an egg. You want to get as close to the shape of the thing that you're making. Once you have it shaped, cover it with some cling wrap. Foam doesn't stick to cling wrap, so don't miss this step. Now it's time for Great Stuff. This is the foam that we're going to spray out, and we're going to need 2 cans of this to do this project. Once you start, the first thing you want to do is split the egg in half with our crack, so make a zigzag right down the middle. Now this is the crack that's going to separate our 2 halves. And we just want to go ahead and start filling it in. The idea is you don't want to touch wet lines of foam to other wet lines of foam because that's going to make a mess. So that's why I'm leaving the space between. I'm letting the lines dry, and then we'll go back in and we'll backfill all this in a second. This is about the end of round 1. I'm going to let this dry, and this is what we got. Now we have 2 halves of the shell coming along. The crack is what splits them in half. And then we're going to go ahead and just backfill all the rest of this so we have 2 parts of the shell. So remember, we have to take these tops off in a minute after we fill it. So don't go so far that it can't come off. We're going to trace the crack, and that's going to be the other top of the shell. And then we're going to backfill the whole rest of this, and we're going to have 2 even halves. So right now I'm just backfilling it back in, and we're working on the bottom. And then once we get this all filled in, we're going to go ahead and do it to the other side. Remember, it expands quite a bit, so you don't have to get every last gap. Now I flipped it over, and we're just doing the same thing on the other side. Backfilling this little bit. And then I went ahead and traced the teeth of the crack on the other side of the shell. This part's important because you want the 2 halves to line up. If the teeth aren't the same, your eye subconsciously is going to notice. So we want to get this clean. And when we're all done, this is what we got. Now we have 2 halves of our eggshell. The line that's the crack separates the shells really good. It's nice and clean. So now we can just peel this off of here. It should come off pretty easy because we put the saran wrap on so it doesn't stick to that. Clean it up a little bit, and this is what you got. Starting to look like an egg. You're going to have some holes in there. Don't worry about those. We'll get to that later. This is a steak knife. And this is a microplaner. It's basically a cheese grater, but gentle. This is a mask, and you're going to want to wear one of these. Now I'm taking the microplaner and just grating this down. It gets down really easy because it's only foam. You're basically just making a pile of Parmesan cheese. So keep sanding it down and working your shape. Try not to work one spot for too long. Like I said, it's foam, so it goes down pretty quick. This is about the end of round 1. You can see how much I've sanded off onto the table. Don't do this project without a mask on. Now I've switched over to the steak knife. It's just easier on the inside. And this is some sandpaper. This is a 3-pack, and this is a sanding sponge. If you don't know how sandpaper works, the numbers are how coarse or fine it is. The lower the number, the coarser it is. The higher the number, the finer it is. So I'm taking the medium, which is 120, and I'm sanding down the inside right now. This is the end of round 1. And you'll notice we still have quite a bit of valleys that are in there. All these on the inside and all these on the outside. Now we could keep sanding these down, but at some point you just sand the whole thing away and it's too thin to work with. So we don't want it 2 inches thick, but it can't be a 1/4 inch thin. That's just not strong enough to hold up for the costume. So I'm tapping all the dust off, and then we're just going to backfill another layer of Great Stuff foam. So go ahead and just fill these back in, and then we'll go over it again with the microplaner, the steak knife, and the sandpaper and smooth the whole thing out. Now, at this point you'll notice this applicator tip is a nightmare. It gets rock solid, and the only way to clean it out is with like a metal pipe cleaner, but that makes a giant mess. Or you could get a new can of Great Stuff every time, but that wastes what's in the old can. The solution is right here. This is a pack of 30 applicator tips that you can get online. There's a link below. And now we can use a new tip every time and not have to worry about the old one being clogged up. This stuff right here, just take it off and throw it away. Now we're back at it with a fresh applicator tip, and you can see we filled in all these divots. So when these dry, we're just going to take our little toolkit and whittle it down. It doesn't matter if you use the steak knife or the cheese grater or the microplaner or the sandpaper or whatever. Whatever works, works. It's just foam. And after that, this is what we got. I've got the outside sanded down, looking pretty good. Starting to look like an egg, but we still have to do the inside, so you know how that works. And after you sand down and smooth the inside, this is what we got. Pretty good looking eggshell. I'm really happy with where this is at. There's still some air holes in there from the foam, but don't worry about the little pock marks. We'll fill those in later. Also, if you want to add more to your shape, you can do that at any time. Foam sticks to foam. So I wanted to round out the bottom of this a little more, so I just put some more foam out. Now I'm getting at it with the steak knife. Then I hit it with the microplaner, and now the bottom of my eggshell's a little more in the shape I wanted. The important part to note is that you don't have to get the final shape in one fell swoop. Now we're working on the yolk, and this goes on our head, so find a bowl that fits on your head. Cover it in saran wrap, and then fill it back in with foam. Pop it out and shape it. And when you're done, this is what you got. We have 2 halves of the eggshell, sanded on both sides, and now we also have the egg yolk, and that's where our head's going to go. Before we can epoxy this, we need to get all the dust off it here. So I take a wet rag and I'm just wiping it down. This is quick and thick glue, and we're going to use this to seal up the foam. This is water, and this goes a lot easier if we just wet our gloves first. Then take the quick and thick glue and put a big old dollop on your hands. And we're just going to cover this whole thing on both sides, all 3 parts. That way when we epoxy, it doesn't soak all the way into the foam. It's basically Elmer's glue, but it's just thicker, so it's easy for this application. And when it dries, now we can get to epoxy. This is epoxy resin, and it comes in 2 parts. Part A and Part B, resin and hardener. It dries crystal clear. So to get color, we need mica powder. This is mica powder, and this is the shade I'm using for the egg yolk. And this is the pearl color I'm using for the egg shell. We mix it up in a little cup. I just took some of these from the salad bar at the grocery store. We're going to make a bunch of small batches, so grab a few cups. We measure equal parts A and B and mix them together. This brand comes with a measuring cup on top, and it has milliliters down the side, so it's easy to do small batches for art projects, which is what we want. It also comes with popsicle sticks. You get the whole kit. I really recommend this brand. It mixes easy and it dries crystal clear. So I'm mixing 25 milliliters of part A and 25 milliliters of part B, 50 milliliters total. And when we stir it, the chemical reaction starts taking place, and that's how this stuff hardens up. Don't mix it too aggressively. You don't want to add bubbles to the mix. A little stir is all it needs to get going. And once it starts hardening, we're on the clock. So now we're going to mix in our mica powder. And I have that right here. Ask ChatGPT or Google how much mica powder you should add to how many milliliters you got. And then just do math for future batches so you can make the color consistent throughout the runs. You're going to want to get a digital scale to measure this precisely, so I put 1 gram in here, but if on a later batch I put 1.2, it would be 20% darker. So you really want to measure your mica powder on a scale, that way your batches are consistent. Now, you might be thinking, can I do this with clear glue? No, it won't work. Glue dries through air, epoxy dries through chemical reaction. Don't use glue. So now we're on the clock. 40 minutes is what I set because it says 40 minutes on the bottle. Go towards the edge of workability, but also use your eyes. You can tell how runny or how thick it is just by stirring it real quick. If it's too runny, it's all going to drip off. We need a bunch of disposable brushes and we need a silicone mat. Silicone is the only thing that this epoxy resin won't stick to, so don't do this project unless you have a silicone mat. Start from the top and just paint your way on down. You're going to need a bunch of disposable brushes. They're going to be one and done, and we're going to do a bunch of small batches. Remember, don't go for gold, go for bronze. You're going to have to do this in a bunch of small rounds. There's no way you're going to do it in one big round. So just do a little bit at a time, let it dry, and then come back at it. After you make one project with this, you're going to be a pro at epoxy resin. Once you paint one thing, you'll have this figured out, and you'll be able to make anything you want for future art projects. Now I'm just finishing up right here, and then I'm going to set it on the mat and let it dry. When you let it dry, you're going to notice that all these drips come off. See this right here? All that's what dripped off, and it would have stuck to the top of our egg yolk. So the way to fix that is to move it after about 15 minutes and minimize the drips that are stuck on our art project. Now, it's time to paint the eggshell, and I'm going with this pearl color that I mixed into the mica. I'm loving this pearl shade. It's a lot more grown up than just a plain old white color. And we're back at it with the top of our eggshell. So, once again, I let it thicken up for 40 minutes, and I just start from the top and work our way to the bottom because gravity is real. I'm working our way down, and you can see how thick this is starting to get. I waited a little bit too long, but that's okay. Like I said, don't go for gold, go for bronze. If you don't get the whole thing in one round, it's all right. You're going to mix more rounds later. We're going to have to do a bunch of touch-up. So the important thing is to know when you got to call it, you got to call it, and just wait till the next round. Now I'm doing the last little bit here, and you can see I ran out of epoxy resin. That whole spot's not going to get done, but that's all right. We'll mix another batch. And when we get it all done, here's what we got. I got the yolk and round one done on both parts of the shell. Now we can see on the eggshell here, I've got some drips. See right here? There's some drips that came down because it was thick towards the end. It's going to happen. It's okay. We can just take this and sand it down a little bit with our sandpaper. Remember the 3-pack we got before? It came with coarse, medium, and fine. I'm using the fine, which is 220 grit, to just buff this down a little bit, and then we'll hit it with another round of epoxy. Also, we're going to have some little stickies on the end from the dry. This one I didn't move at all. I forgot to come back, and it's got some big chunks stuck on here, which is okay. We just got to trim these off. You're going to be tempted to peel these off. Don't do that. Use wire snips. If you peel it, you're going to pull the foam. You can use scissors too, but I like wire snips because they're precise and they're easy to work with. I'm trying to make things for you guys that you don't have to buy a lot of tools for, but if you want to invest $5 into your costume kit, wire snips are a great purchase. Now I'm cleaning off all these little bits here. And then once we get it clean, we're going to go hit it with one more round of epoxy resin and cover up the drips. And when we're all done with epoxy resin on both sides, this is what we get. Look how gorgeous this pearl shade is. I recommend this for the egg color. I was a little worried at first and was going to go with plain white, but I'm really glad I went with this pearl mica. It pops the whole thing. Now it's time to attach all three parts together like this. And we're going to do this with more epoxy resin and just glue it all together. But before we can do this, we need to stop and try things on. We haven't put the yolk on our head since it was the salad bowl, so we need to make sure this fits. If you need to shave out some of the foam on the inside, now is the time to do this. Take a piece of painter's tape and mark the front so you know where the front is, and now we're back at it. This is a hard hat, and take the band out of the inside. It just pops right off, and we're going to epoxy this into place in our yolk. I'm using Gorilla Epoxy, but you can use the 2-part. It's all the same stuff. Put a dab up here on each of these little plastic pieces, and then we're going to press this in just like this. Make sure you put the front of the band where the blue tape is so the front faces the front and the back faces the back. Get it all the way in there. We don't want to see the band. And this way, we have an easy way to wear our costume. This is Gorilla Tape, and we're going to use this to reinforce the band inside the yoke helmet we just made. This is duct tape, and we're never going to use this stuff. It just doesn't have a whole lot of tape in it. Always use Gorilla Tape. Now I'm pressing the plastic pieces in with some Gorilla Tape to reinforce it. And this way, when this band's in here, we have an easy way to wear this costume and to adjust it, and we'll be comfortable all night long. Now it's time to attach the shell to the yoke. We're going to do this 1/2 at a time. So you can see here, I've propped it up with some dumbbells, and I just have a couple contact points right there where the shell touches the yolk. If you don't have any dumbbells, use some flower pots or some pots and pans with some water. Just make sure it doesn't move. Now I'm going back at it with the epoxy. I mixed up the epoxy resin just like we did before, only this time we're not adding any mica powder. We want it clear because that's how the egg looks when it's fresh cracked. I waited an hour on this and got it really thick because most of this is going to end up dripping down, but that's all right because that's going to create the coolest part of this entire costume and the highlight of the whole thing, which are the fresh cracked egg yolk drips. Look how cool these are. It gives it that just crack the egg into the skillet look. It's suspended in air. Nobody knows how we did it, but you do because you're a pro at 2-part epoxy resin at this point. Scoop some off the silicone mat every 10 minutes and keep adding to it, and it'll make the icicles thicker. Now it's time to do it to the other side. The eggshell lines up because we made the crack the same from the beginning, so find a couple pieces of the teeth that fit together. And just like before, we're going to put a nice thick dollop onto this and glue it together. I waited an hour to get this really thick before I put it on there. And be generous because this only holds together in a few points, and if it bonks into something while we're wearing it, we don't want it to break. So I'm generously applying this up here, letting it drip down. There's no right or wrong. The more you get up there, the more drips are going to happen, and it's going to look awesome. The important part is that your dumbbell or whatever you rigged up for the stand doesn't move while you're letting it dry. We want to let this sit for 24 hours to completely dry before we're done. Add some more drips as much as you want. You're a pro at 2-part epoxy at this point, and there's nothing we can't make with these same techniques. I'm going to make a flower with a bumblebee landing on it, an oyster with a pearl in it. Lots of cool stuff coming down the pipe. So do me a favor, if you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button because I'm really just trying to inspire and help all of us build better costumes so we can have more fun at the party and the parade. And that's it. All done. This cracked egg costume is a home run. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you learned something. I'll see you out there. And I can't wait to see your costume. Be safe, everyone.